morning, good evening to everyone who's joining from other places around the world. I hope you're having a good day. All right, well, my name is Camila Hacherian, and I am very pleased to have you here with us in the 5th edition of Encuentro Limitless. It's an event organized by the CDLE UCAB with the purpose of promoting the use and interaction of foreign languages. Today's activity will last around 45 minutes. Our speaker will have 35 minutes to develop the topic, and then he will answer your questions. Remember that you can write them down in the chat or in the Q&A section, or you can ask them orally later when he is done speaking. I will read them to you. I would also like to remind you of our contact information, which on Twitter and Instagram it's at CDLE_UCAB, and on Facebook and YouTube it's Centro para el Desarrollo de Lenguas Extranjeras. So today, Professor Rubén Carvajal poses us this question. So, are the cool-headed decision makers really putting aside their emotions at the moment of taking crucial decisions? Well, the neuroscience evidence indicates that even in the most logical and rational decisions, our limbic system is always modulating our decisions. So in this presentation, he will show us evidence of the role of emotions in the decision-making process. In regards to his professional journey, he first acquired his undergraduate degree in chemistry in the Universidad Central de Venezuela, and then he went on to pursue his Master of Science in Physiology, also at his alma mater. Finally, he became a doctor in education here in our very own UCAB. He is currently a lecturer in the courses of neuroscience, neuromarketing, and neuroeducation. So without further ado, please welcome Professor Rubén Carvajal. I give you the floor, Professor.
Hello, everyone. How are you today? When I decided to make this conference, this talk, the role of emotion in decision making, that was an emotional decision. Of course, there is some kind of rationality in my decision, but there is an important component of emotion in this decision. Why? Because I love to do this, and love is the most irrational of the things that we can find. See, yes or no? Isn't it? Well, let's start by saying that we make decisions all the time. From the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep, we make decisions. And these decisions can be habits, like for instance, if you are used to run and jog every day, probably for you it is a habit. If I ask you, for instance, why do you run? There is a song that says, we run to live longer. And why do you decide to run? To feed, to feel healthy, to avoid any kind of illness or risks of that matter. So at the end of the day, decisions like going every day for running have an emotional basis, and that is enjoying life as much as you can. Let's say that you are so sleepy at night after watching the movies that you practically want to go to bed without brushing your teeth. But something inside you says, this little voice that seems like a rational voice says, you have to wash your teeth. Probably if Freud was watching this conference, he said that's the super yo that is asking you to do your duties. That's your mom or your dad reminding you that you have to do this because it's important. But why is important? Is this a habit? Is this rational to wash your teeth? or there is some kind of emotion that we can dig and beneath that surface and find some emotion there. Yes, there is an emotion. What is that emotion? Okay, the fear of having cavities. You don't want to go to the dentist. Most of us have experience going to the dentist and feeling the pain and the fear of the injection, of the anesthesia, or at the moment when the drill is coming to your teeth and trying to explore that cavity. You don't want to experience that anymore. There is a fear underneath the simple fact, the simple habit of washing your teeth. So let's imagine for a moment that I ask you to write down all the activities that you make in a day, from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. After you go to sleep, of course, you go to a different realm. You go to the realm of the unconscious, the unconsciousness. That is a kind of a crazy world, surreal, in which you don't have any sort of control of what you are doing. Unless, of course, you are a lucid dreamer and you can have some sort of control of what you are dreaming. But most of us aren't lucid dreamers. So let's focus on the period of time that we are awake, we are conscious, and let's write down all the activities we make in a day. From the moment we take breakfast, lunch, and we do all our activities. And let's say for a moment that I ask you, what is the percentage? Let's do this calculation for a moment. What is the percentage of activities that you consider during your day emotional decisions, rational decisions, or habits? And then at this moment, when I ask you this task, let's say that your brain at this moment, if you imagine doing this activity, trying to use your mirror neurons to imagine doing these activities, some circuits in your brain start to think about the viability or the feasibility of this task. And then you have, you would say, rational circuits that are involved because you have to do this task. This is a task when you are talking about this kind of activities. We are in the realm of the cognitive activities. We are in the realm of the prefrontal cortex and the executive functions. But there is not only a matter of calculation, because also you have some emotions there. But let's say for a moment that you are a rational person and you say, okay, I finished my task at the end of the day, and this is what I got. I found that 50% of my activities during the day imply some kind of rational decisions. I would say that 30% of those activities can be considered as habits, and only a small 20% are emotional decisions. And then I ask you, can you tell me which one of these are emotional decisions, for instance? And then you say, well, when I go to eat something, breakfast, lunch, dinner, sometimes I feel like eating something different. In the morning or today, I felt like eating pancakes with marmalade. But some days I feel like eating arepas or feeling like eating something else, a sandwich or a scrambled eggs. So I consider this as emotional decisions, as well as, for instance, going to watch a movie. I watch Netflix, and then I start deciding which one in which mood I am right now to watch what kind of movie. Say, well, I prefer an action movie today. Probably tomorrow I prefer something like it's more drama or more comedy. So I would say that these are kind of emotional decisions. But what about the rational decision? Can you tell me in your activity of today, which one you choose as a rational decision? And then you say, hey, of course, I have to submit my tax declaration by Friday. This is the deadline. And this is absolutely rational decision. I have to do only calculations. I have to planify. I have to plan all the possible deductions and incomes. So yes, this is absolutely a rational decision. But then what happens if I ask you, what would happen if you don't declare on time and you, let's say you forget to declare on your deadline, and then what happens? It is no, that's impossible. I need to declare on time. Otherwise, I can get the maximum deduction that is not like 35% of my incomes. I don't want that. But why don't you want that? Well, because that would be a big mistake to have this loss of money unnecessarily. I would feel very bad about it. Oh, you're gonna feel bad about it if you don't do it. It's kind of a punishment, right? And if you do it, you're gonna feel well because you did your duty, your responsibility as a citizen, but at the same time, you are going to feel calm, relaxed, because you are not going to feel any pain for losing money. If you see a crucial and rational decision like this has also a bottom line that is emotional. So at the end of the day, your brain is not for thinking. This phrase is not mine. I read it, and probably some of you probably have also read it. And at the New York Times, there was this new neuroscientist that have this concept of the emotions, that the brain is just the result of these long uh, years and thousands and millions of years of evolution that make us uh, have this brain, but not for thinking, but for controlling our homeostasis. Our body has all these needs to maintain the equilibrium. And basically what we do with our brain, that is the result of a complex evolution for our species, the Homo sapiens, is keep track of all the different variations in the different systems that we have in our body, and inform the central system, the brain. And the brain has a structure called the hypothalamus that sends information back through the autonomous system, the parasympathetic and sympathetic systems, that makes us maintain the equilibrium. So if we go out the equilibrium with the allostasis, our brain keeps us back to the homeostasis. So thinking, in other words, is, if you will, kind of a byproduct of our brain. So we have thinking, we have complex thinking, abstract thinking, we have language, we have all these complex activities in our prefrontal cortex, which is called the executive functions, typical from humans. But mostly our brain is monitoring and checking all the internal milieu of our body. I love this metaphor, the Freudian metaphor of the iceberg, because it's powerful. It's a powerful metaphor. Imagine, what is floating is the small part of the iceberg. what is the consciousness, and then you have this big, enormous part of what we can call the mind-body complex, which is on the realm of the unconsciousness. And this is what I would like to discuss a little bit, because the main point of this talk is emotions are always underlying our decisions. Sometimes are not the best advisors for us, but they are present all the time. Rationality and emotionality are always working together. In these images that you see here, you see in the left side the area that corresponds to rewards. All the stimuli that causes reward, pleasure, are controlled by specialized circuits in which the tegmental ventral area, the nucleus accumbens, and these frontal areas like the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, the orbitofrontal cortex, and the frontopolar cortex constitutes this specialized circuit for rewards, for obtaining pleasure. So it means it seems like we are always moving in between these two poles, the pole of looking for hedonic rewards and avoiding what is aversive stimuli. When I say aversive, we are talking about unpleasant feelings. We don't want to feel pain. We don't want to feel unpleasant, disgusting feelings. And we have a specialized region in our brain, the anterior insula and the amygdala. The amygdala mostly specialized in recognizing fear. There is this scientist, the neuroscientist called Joseph Ledoux, which have research and explore the functions of the amygdala in very deep level. And he has found all these functions of the amygdala. Of course, there is also an involvement of amygdala in other different emotions, but mostly what has to do with fear and rage. That alert us is kind of a panic button, is a kind of a center for detecting danger or detecting any threat. We respond to those threats towards our autonomous systems by the classical responses or fight, flight, or freeze. We can have these three different autonomous responses. So if I ask you, what are the most rational decisions a person can make? Probably you're gonna think about getting a job is important and very rational, or quitting a job, getting married or getting divorced, crucial decisions, investing in a stock market, voting for your favorite candidate, or buying or mortgaging a house. But let's examine for a bit more about this decision. I'm going to tell you a personal experience that I had when I was recently graduated. That's me with no gray hair when I was in my 20s. Recently graduated, I got these offers, 2 job offers, and then this is not exactly the calculation I did, but it was very similar. What I did is I was unsure which one to take, and then I decided to do with my logical mind as a scientist, well, let's put this in numbers. And I started putting this in numbers. So I decided, I choose all the different categories, the different items, like job stability, the possibilities of promotions, opportunity for advancement, the closest to family, etc. So I gave in a scale from 1 to 9 points to each item for job A and for job B. And then I assign an importance factor, which is a kind of a way for ponderating the total. So all these totals were ponderated, and then the numbers I got at the end were very close, and I was, why this happened? Why I have these numbers so close? I would have preferred to have more difference. This is an example, but in my case, I got a different numbers. But what I'm trying to point here is that this importance factor is actually an emotional factor, because why I give health insurance a factor of 9? Because I want to have protection. I want to be protected, and this safety need, if we talk about the Maslow pyramid, the safety needs is one of the basics besides survival and the very basic needs. But at the end, if you start going to the roots of these different factors, in each one of them, you are going to find an emotion beneath. Let's talk about Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin, before getting married, with his mind as a scientist, as a naturalist, his skeptical mind, he made this, he wrote this. This is originally from Charles Darwin, and he got in a list the pros and cons of getting married. So he listed the advantages of getting married and the advantages of not getting married. It's not so clear here, but you can read some of them here. For instance, getting married, well, you can get constant companion, a friend in an old age, object to be beloved and play with, someone to take care of house, charms of music and female chit chat, children to take care for one in old age, better than a dog anyhow. Today that comments looks kind of a sexist and old-fashioned, but these were the times when he was living. But you see kind of a opportunistic and utilitarian criteria in all these pros of getting married. But at the end, you see, you can detect very easily the emotions that are present in a rational mind, like a Charles Darwin mind. Not getting married, no quarreling, freedom to go where one likes, choice of society a little bit, conversation of clever men at clubs, not forced to visit relatives, not forced to bend to every trifle, more money for books, time to read books in evening, no expenses or anxiety of children. So you can detect and see clearly the emotions involved here. Let's go to a very precise and rational profession like financing. The people that works in investing in finance in the stock market. I got this news from Forbes where they give some advices, 3 ways to make rational, not emotional decisions on Wall Street. Why do Forbes have to? Why does Forbes have to make these advices? Probably because the stock market is one of the most vulnerable and clearly volatile to the emotions there, even the panic. Let's say Cristiano Ronaldo move apart 2 Coca-Cola bottles, and you see the next day billions of dollars in losses in the stock market. Or let's say you see Elon Musk one day talking about his Doge coin, that is a kind of a cryptocurrency. He talks bad about it, and immediately the panic comes, because when it's about money and survival, the emotions are on the very surface of our skins. This famous investor, one of the most successful investors in the stock market in the 20th century, which is Andrés Costolani, he says something very interesting. He said, facts only account for 10% of the reaction of the stock market. Everything else is psychology. But when he says everything else is psychology, what he means is everything else is emotions. Because psychology studies not only the mind, how the mind works and how we behave, but also how emotions are one of the key factors in all this process of constructing a mind and a decision maker. In the moment when we are going to buy, the rationality and the emotionality are always present. You don't buy a cell phone just because of the price, the quality, the feature, and the warranty. You also have it because you like it, because your friend have it, because you feel confident, because it's reliable, you can trust. The key word here is trust. Once you trust, you buy. And what is trust else than an emotion? In a very interesting study of American scholars and Israeli scholars, they found that the judges can have different decisions during the day, depending of the time of the day and depending of if they have recently having breakfast, lunch, or a break for eating something. And let's say a client, a customer, a client of this lawyer is asking for parole. Probably the judge is gonna grant this parole depending of the hour of the day. And of course, here in this study that it was published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Science, you can see the proportion of favorable decisions of giving parole to this client, this person, and how it changes during the day at the moment of the breaks for food. So if you see when you are hungry, your mood changes, isn't it? You feel not so joyful person. You feel like kind of, in a very different mood. Don't feel so happy. So this is because we are going to see this in a few moments. The homeostasis of our body is related to these two poles we have talked about, the pole of aversion and the pole of pleasure, and emotions and sentiments, the feelings, are just a kind of a ramification of these main homeostatic and basic poles in our body. Let's talk about having a vaccine. This is very polemic nowadays. There are people that say, no, I don't want to get vaccinated. I don't trust vaccines. I don't trust those vaccines because they're gonna do bad for me. It's gonna be worse for me. Or you can say, yes, of course, I'm gonna get vaccinated. Me personally, I want to get vaccinated as soon as possible. So far, I have filled all this form to claim for my time for vaccination, but so far I haven't have the call for my vaccine. But there are people that definitely think that this can cause death. But if you see underneath this decision, even if you check all the possibilities, which one, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Sputnik, Sinopharm, any kind of vaccine in the world, let's say you make all this rational study and this with all these pros and cons of different vaccines, but at the end of the day, what moves you to get vaccinated are your belief if you want to live or not, if you want to get sick or not. So there is fear underneath this decision, even if you want or you don't want. The fear is always present in these kind of decisions. There are also these moral decisions, like it is classic decision of this wagon, this train that comes high speed with no possibility for stopping or braking. So this person have the option of moving this lever and make the train to move to the upper side of the rails and kill this person that is unaware, or doing nothing and the train is going to kill these 5 unaware people. Probably if I ask you which one would you decide, if you belong to the majority of these responses, you're going to choose to move the lever for the train to move to the upper rail. It's going to take some time, but if I ask you, the train is with no brakes, and you have the choice of throwing this fat person to the rails, and he can stop the train to kill these 5 unaware people. Now you don't need to think too much. You immediately feel something. You feel inside, this is wrong. This is murder. In this case, probably you think, well, this person is gonna die because of my decision. But you feel something inside that says that this is a lost, a small loss compared to this big loss. So you feel here, you use more of your rationality, but also your emotions are present. But here, this is a more emotionally response. When I do this test with all my students in all the semesters, they always respond the same way. Here, they take a few more seconds to decide, but always the majority respond this way. And here, these take less seconds it's more automatic, and the majority say almost 99% response, I would do nothing. Okay, what happened is that we have this nerve, what is called the vagus nerve, sorry. The vagus nerve receives all the information from the different guts, the intestine, stomach, liver, heart, lungs, everything that you have inside, what is called the interoception, the perception of your inside, your internal milieu, that perception, that feeling of your gut is transmitted to the central brain, to the different centers in the brain, and the response back, it can go through the vagus nerves as well, or through the sympathetic nerves, the autonomous nerves. The thing is that in this study, new detailed nerve links between brain and other organs shape thoughts, memories, and feelings. There is a completely new field of study about the microbiota or microbiome, which is the bacteria that we have in our intestines, in our gut, that interact with the vagus nerve through some chemical like called cytokines. The cytokines and different other molecules interact with the vagus nerve, and then in this interaction, the central nervous system can be affected, can be influenced. In other words, our gut bacteria can affect the way that our mood, we feel in some specific moment. This is a completely new field of study. But the point is, in which I want to go, is that we don't have mind and body separated, like we can see here in this image from Futurama. René Descartes, that rationalist philosopher, the French rationalist philosopher of the 18th century, he posted that mind was a particular substance separated from body, which was a different substance. He called it the res cogitant and the res extensa, the body substance and the mind substance. And he said that the only way that they connected was through the pineal gland. Now we know that this is not true. Mind and body are interconnected. And one of the scientists is a neurologist. The first one I read that changed completely my perspective of what emotions are was Antonio Damasio, a Portuguese neurologist working in the United States. And most of his research has been on emotion, consciousness, etc. But he has a book that is called Descartes' Error. Descartes was a dualist philosopher. Mind and body go different ways. Antonio Damasio have demonstrated with many of his patients that the possibility of making good decisions also have the body into account. In this study of 2014, thousands of people were asked where in your body you feel these emotions. This is only a few of the emotions that they studied. They studied like 50 different emotions. I'm just showing you the first main universal emotions: anger, fear, disgust, happiness, sadness, and surprise. When the people were asked about it, let's say, when you feel anger, where do you feel the anger? And let's say I say, well, I feel it in my fist, I feel it in my heart, and I feel it in my ears. I feel that my ears get hot. Okay, let's say another person say, I feel it in my chin, I feel it in my arms, I feel it in my lungs, I feel, etc. So what this is just a statistic result of all the different persons that were indicating where they felt their emotions. And then if you see this a difference between, for instance, happiness and anger, or happiness and disgust. You see the throat here. Of course, when we feel disgust, the first thing that we feel is this uh, tend to throw the what we have, sadness and surprise. So the body is uh, connecting with the mind. This quote from Antonio Damasio, I like it very much. Every time the possibility of a bad decision occurs to you, even fleetingly, you have an unpleasant gut feeling. Your body tells you when your decision is not the proper decision. This interconnection of the vagus nerve with the central system and and what is called enteric system, there is thousands of neurons, almost as many as the rest of the central systems in the intestines and the guts. They are capable of make us feel many of the sensations and emotions that we experience during the day. That part of our body, the chest, the heart, and the guts, uh, usually receive many of these feedback, mind and body, and make us feel different kind of emotion. You I've heard that expression that is very common, the butterflies in your stomach when you are in love. Well, that's part of the thing. The feeling of being in love involves practically all your body. When people is asked, when you're in love, where do you feel in what part of your body? You see all the body completely illuminated with the different parts of the body that the people indicate. I was very surprised when I read this news in CNN Politics that decision inside Biden's defense of Afghanistan withdrawal amid warnings of country's collapse. You know, the United States has been for 20 years approximately in Afghanistan. And now, since Trump administration and Biden administration, they have decided to withdraw all the military from there. The Taliban has gained more and more territory. And I read today or yesterday, I don't remember, the news that they killed one of these Afghanistan's military that were trained by the United States. So, and they probably are gonna overtake the country again. So what can you do? And I was surprised, but at the same time, pleased to read this because this is a radical honesty declaration that usually you don't see in politics. They usually cover and make this to look better than it is. But this is just exactly what it is. This is a gut decision. That's enough. Enough is enough. So he's gonna withdraw the army. So we move between these two networks, as I said before. I don't want to go in too much detail in here, just to mention two structures only. In this reward network, the ventral striatum, which is where the nucleus accumbens is located, and the ventral tegmental area, which is part of the mesolimbic, the cortical mesolimbic system, is this dopaminergic system that makes you feel all these feelings of physical pleasure, when you have good reputation, treated fairly, cooperating, giving to charity, or this expression that is typically a German word, Schadenfreude, which means when you get joy or happy with the disgrace of others, when others are, for instance, being punished for doing, something bad, or this is you get kind of a joy for the revenge of other that acted badly. And in this case, the pain network involves different structure, but I just want to highlight this here, the insula. The insula is very important in all these feelings of physical pain or emotional pain, social exclusion, very men being treated unfairly, or social comparison. So at the end, and I'm about to finish, you have these three in which the main part of the tree has your body with your metabolic regulation, the homeostasis process, immune responses, basic reflexes. This belongs to the more deep unconscious area of your body. Then you have these two poles, the pain and pleasure behaviors. And if you go to different branches of this tree, you have these drives and motivations that cause you to get your needs. But below this dot line, you see emotions and all these different items here, which are belonging to what is called the unconscious mind. But the feelings are the part of this process that is that you make consciously. You are conscious of what you feel. But let's point out something very important that also was said by Antonio Damasio. This does not mean that emotions cannot wreak havoc in certain circumstances. In certain circumstances, many, in which we as humans have going to work all these different issues, racial issues, ethnical issues, religious issues, political issues. They have ancient issues, unresolved issues that have made us go to different wars and different conflicts. These are moved, but these decisions not properly handled. What is important, but rather suggests that certain aspects of emotion are indispensable to rationality because they point us in the right direction. You probably read all the information regarding the Brexit, all these tensions that were caused at the end finally were resolved in the best way for both parties. And they were trying to get the best for their own interests, for their own parties, nations, UK and the European Union in this case. At the end, it was resolved. But emotions, in even in these cases, were also present. As Antonio Damasio says, we are not thinking machines that feel, rather, we are feeling machines think. Aristotle used to say that famous quote, the man is a rational animal. But I think he forgot something very important, which is emotion. Emotion has been forgotten and undermined and discarded as something valid for investigation and research for many, many years. Only in the last 50 years have gained some prestige, this kind of research regarding the role of emotions. So to conclude, I would say if you are a person that considers yourself either a rational or emotional person, at the moment when you have these crucial decisions to make, it's convenient, it's an advice, a small piece of advice if you want. Uh, Write down the pros and cons, but also how do you feel about each one of these pros and cons. And that's all. Thank you for your attention, and I'm willing to know feedback, critics, anything, questions, and open-minded to anything you want to say. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor. It was a huge pleasure having you with us. We have two questions here in the Q&A section. First, from Armando Sepulveda, he asks, is the prefrontal cortex responsible of the rational decisions?
In some way, yes. Rationality, as we call it, there are some specific structures, like for instance, one structure that make us do calculations, mathematical calculations, like the is called dorsomedial prefrontal cortex, is the external side and the upper side. But there is also the orbitofrontal cortex. The orbitofrontal cortex is on top of the eyes, of course, with the bone of the head, the cranium. They receive inputs from different sensorial cortices and also from the amygdala. But when you want to estimate, for instance, the value of something, let's say you want to buy a cookie, and you see this cookie and it has chips of chocolate. And then you see the value of that cookie is, let's say, $2. You see that, you see the price, and in your brain, you start doing this estimation of the value. Is this value something that you decide in a mathematical way or in a subjective way of some sort of also emotionality. The economist said that the value of a thing can be calculated with these formulas, and they have all these laws and this, this homo economicus that makes decisions based on rationality and trying to avoid as much as possible any loss. But at the end of the day, when you make any decision, the subjective value of a thing is always present. So in some way, yes, your prefrontal cortex are definitely involved in the most of the rational decision, what is called the executive functions.
All right, thank you very much, Professor. And here, Christian Lee, more of a comment, I think, than a question. He says, regarding the vaccine, when someone doesn't want to get a vaccine.
Regarding, excuse me?
The vaccine, the COVID vaccine.
Oh, okay. Okay.
When someone doesn't want to get a vaccine, it's an emotional decision, isn't it? Because a rational thought is when you know what the vaccine makes you.
Yeah.
This is his comment.
Yeah, in some way, yes, I agree with that. You can attribute a more percentage of emotionality in the people that decide not to get vaccinated than in the people that decide to get vaccinated. At the end, if you see underlying both, there is also the emotions there. Because why I want to get vaccinated as soon as possible? Because I want to get protected. It's always fear that is present there. But the fear in their case, of those that don't want to get vaccinated, in my opinion, and this is a very personal opinion, I agree with Lee that rationality is not helping these people to understand the thing. They are obnubilated. They are.
Professor, I think your connection is a little off. Let's wait just a little while for his connection to come back. Ah, there you are. Can you hear us, Professor?
Yes.
Yes, your connection became unstable for a moment and we lost you. But I think now you're back. Yeah, but now you're back.
Oh, no.
We have another comment or question from Andrea Gomez.
Okay.
She says, "Hi, Professor. You said something that stuck with me. If you trust it, you buy it. Could you give us some advice on how to build that trust, acknowledging our own and our clients' emotions?"
Hey, can you repeat? Excuse me, Camila, can you repeat the question because you were frozen?
Okay, yes, I will also write it down in the chat so you can read it if you want, just so that you can have it, so it's easier for you. I will read it again.
I don't know, Karen Valeska.
I will read it. Is it good? Can you hear me?
I'm having some problem hearing Camila.
Okay.
I don't know, Karen and Valeska, if you can. Sorry, Camila, can you repeat it one more time, please?
Yes, of course. Here, Andrea Gomez is asking, she says that the thing that you said about trust with products, it stuck with her. She says,
no.
Could you give us some advice? No, you cannot hear me. Okay. Okay, maybe if you stop sharing your screen, your internet connection can become better.
Okay,
try that.
Let me stop. All right, that's true. Let me stop sharing
and see if that helps.
Okay, good.
Okay, I will put out my video as well. Please. Yes. She says, Andrea Gomez, Hi, Professor. You said something that stuck with me. If you trust it, you buy it. Could you give us some advice on how to build that trust, acknowledging our own and our clients' emotions, especially with this online reality that we are all facing?
I missed some part here.
Okay, let me help you and I will text you the question, yes?
Could you give us some advice on how to build that trust, acknowledging our own and our clients' emotions, especially with this online reality that we are facing? Okay, what I can say is the person's body language, and if you feel that that person transmit some the art of the rhetoric nowadays is called the art of persuasion. Ethos, logos, pathos. Logos is how rational your speech, your discourse is. Pathos is the emotion that you transmit when you talk. You are not
Professor,
a robot. Oh, what? I'm
I'm sorry.
responding. What's going on?
It's just that your sound is getting interrupted, so we cannot understand fully what you are saying. So
Okay.
maybe if you try to turn off your video, it can help the connection.
Okay,
I'm
all right.
sorry.
No problem. Thank you. Okay, I was saying regarding the question I can see is okay. You said something struck me. If you trust, you buy it. I think is that a question of yours? Yes. The best way when, to buy something, you buy a person that you trust in. I remember the first computer we bought at home. It was a Macintosh computer in 1984. We didn't know what to buy. And I remember we went to this store of it was specialized in Apple computers, and the only reason we bought was of the sales person. The salesman was this guy was kind of a nerd guy, with all this knowledge about computers, very prepared in what he was saying, but he made us trust that that was our best possible decision, even when it was the most expensive one, because the Windows PCs were quite less expensive. So the way to do this is when you trust a person. So the art of persuasion, as I was saying when I was talking about Aristotle, is these three pillars: ethos, logos, and pathos. You cannot convince anyone just with rationality or even with emotionality, what is the pathos. You need to add the ethos, the values, the moral attitude. I mean, you have some values, you transmit some um, right thing, right way to do things. You transmit it. So your honesty is the most important thing, I would say, as a professional, to get honesty. Be authentic, be you, and then people will decide if buy from you or not. I don't know if there is other question. I would like to thank for so many questions that I can see here.
Um, I think that for now, I don't see another question,
Okay.
but I see that a lot of people have said that it was an excellent presentation and they are very thankful and they think that it's a very important topic as well.
Okay.
And
I'm
I
very
think that's
grateful
it.
as well. Thank you.
Let's see if we can
And
turn on our videos, Professor, so we
turn
can
on my
maybe,
camera to say
yeah,
goodbye.
exactly.
It was a real pleasure. I enjoyed this talk. And thank you very
I think we lost you again, but I would like to thank everyone that has been connected today to our talk. And I invite you to continue participating in our limitless activities. You can check our agenda on the link tree and you can follow us in our social networks. And I wish you a very good day and see you next time. You can disconnect now. Thank you for coming and thank you, Professor, for that excellent talk.